Is Critical Role preparing for the end of Exandria? Before we dive into some potential hints about the fate of Exandria and the latest state of the role, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons? It really helps the channel and helps us keep these videos coming. And then, let's dive into the news.
Just come with me. Come on.
During the State of the Role last week, Matt Mercer mentioned the next episode of Critical Role would not only be the finale of Campaign 3, but seemed to suggest that it was the end of this chapter of Critical Role, mentioning tying up the stories of Vox Machina, the Mighty Nein, Bell's Hells, and even Exandria itself. Take a listen.
And not just Bell's Hells, also Mighty Nein, Vox Machina, really kind of all of Exandria, like the end of these three major chapters of all of our history.
So if this is really the end of Exandria, what comes next? And what does it mean for Vox Machina, the Mighty Nein, and Bell's Hells? Let's break it all down. First off, why would Critical Role potentially move on from Exandria in Campaign 4? The reality is they would still have Exandria around to come back for mini-series like EXU, it just wouldn't be the current main setting for a new D&D based campaign. But we do know that Exandria is being adapted for Dagger this year, as that was mentioned during their live tour announcement. So even if D&D Exandria goes away, Dagger Exandria should still be there to stay as long as Critical Role is around. But the reason a clean break from Exandria as we know it makes sense is, as always, the D&D intellectual property issue. Parts of Exandria still have elements of D&D IP in them, and for a creator-owned company who values creator-owned assets, having some of your core campaign that you can't freely distribute, sell, or promote due to another company owning some of the IP within it isn't really a viable long-term option. And while this current storyline could fix that by removing the last major vestige of D&D intellectual property in Exandria, aka their gods, which Critical Role is already referring to by new names, that's just one way the story could wind up ending. And if the gods just step down but their legacy remains, a clean break to a new setting would allow Matt Mercer to build a world totally owned by Critical Role, free of any control or constraints by Wizards of the Coast and D&D. And while Travis would love to see more of the Shattered Teeth, and Ashley is super excited about the idea of exploring an underwater kingdom in Exandria, those are all things that could be done in EXU-style miniseries or one-shots as the main campaign moves on to a new setting. That is also how Critical Role could treat their previous adventuring parties as well, doing one-shots or brief 3 to 4 episode miniseries flashing back to either pre-Predassos decision times or checking in to see how these parties fared in the aftermath of this campaign. Basically, the next wave of EXU series could all be set in this new timeline after the world-altering events occur in the next episode, whenever the cast feels like revisiting their old characters. And while that's mainly true for Vox Machina and Mighty Nein, as for Bell's Hells, based on how much the cast kind of, for lack of a better word, shit on their own Bell's Hells characters as the Mighty Nein when they all met up, and the sort of mixed reaction a lot of the campaign has gotten from the viewers, they could also pop back up, but we think it'll take a little more time and maybe a full animated series with a lot of changes to really get the critters invested into seeing this self-proclaimed group of weirdos again. So if we can go back to Exandria for the occasional EXU-style miniseries, there is no real reason not to just make a clean break and give Matt a clean slate to start a new world free of all D&D IP. It would also explain why no release window for Campaign 4 was given, since putting the final touches on a brand new world can be a very time-consuming and hard-to-nail-down process, especially when you're not leaning on any existing D&D IP to make your creation. With EXU Divergence running all the way into mid-March, a brand new world setting could mean we're looking at a May or even June release for Campaign 4, as opposed to a possible April release, to give Matt and the team time to create this new world from the ground up. Although we do suspect that a new world is something that Matt has already been working on for years if they do decide to move on from Exandria. The other option is just another major time jump. An Exandria 1,000 years or more in the future with new empires, new technology, and new mysteries to explore could also be an interesting way forward for the show. While it does still have the downside of being tied to some D&D IP and its lore of the past, it could probably just be avoided in the narrative. It just wouldn't be nearly as clean of a break as a full setting swap would be. But either way, Exandria, minus a few niche areas, has largely been fully explored and investigated at this point. All the major powers and groups have been interacted with in one way or another during the 3 campaigns, And with the final big piece of the Exandria puzzle being solved on Thursday, the fate of the gods, or if they'll send the world back to the cycle of natural rebirth that existed with the Titans beforehand, or just having new gods take their place, it feels like the perfect time to move along to a new world. And we know that the team at Critical Role now have a ton more experience in world building since the early days in which Exandria was first created. Candela Obscura may not have been a massive success in terms of fans flocking to that gameplay system itself, but the world building and the setting were absolutely phenomenal. And Matt Mercer has been polishing his world building with Dagger as well, creating his own Soulsborne style setting for the new game. So if it's time to leave Exandria behind for good, we can't wait to see what kind of new world and all the new mysteries and adventures Matt and Critical Role's staff have cooked up for us for Campaign 4. So what do you think? Are you ready to say goodbye to Exandria? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.